Welcome to the Exploring Awareness podcast. Join Dr. Frank Anderson and Lisa Berry in exploring new ways to live in this chaotic world and find peace and joy in the most unlikely places.
Hi, and thanks for listening to our Exploring Awareness podcast. I'm Lisa Berry.
And I'm Frank Anderson.
And we're grateful that you are choosing to listen to our podcast and all that we talk about in Exploring Awareness, followed up with a guided meditation at the end. So lots for you to listen to.
And Lisa, this is episode 42. So we have 41 other episodes that people could listen to get some background information and get up to date with all the latest at Exploring Awareness.
I was thinking, as I mentioned, you do a guided meditation at the end of this, and I'm big on guided meditations. And one of my favorites, other than those of Dr. Frank Anderson, is one by Deepak Chopra, and it's a wisdom meditation. And he says, "You are not your thoughts." I start thinking. I don't know if I should be thinking when he says about your thoughts, but what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a really common kind of statement in people who meditate and talk about these things. And, it kind of doesn't make any intuitive sense, does it?
No. Do you have thoughts about what "you are not your thoughts" means?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. I have thoughts about it. But unfortunately, thinking isn't going to get us there. And it really does go back to this concept of exploring awareness. Even the word exploring awareness, it's a question mark. And so to say, well, we are not our thoughts, and that is related to exploring awareness, can kind of give you a hint about what we're talking about. It isn't actually a thought that you would understand what this means. It comes from a place other than thought that you would understand it. But we first have to take a step back and say, well, aren't we our thoughts? Who said, "I think, therefore I am"?
I think, wasn't that Descartes? Rene Descartes?
I was going to say that, but I wasn't sure. But you are so good at history.
I know. It's like I want to say it all in French to you right now, but it's slipping my mind at this time. What does that mean? I think, therefore I am.
Yeah. So that's about opposite of what you just said.
Right.
Deepak Chopra said, "I am not my thoughts." So
right.
Is it that I think, therefore I am, or am I not my thoughts? And I think we grow up in kind of a Western culture that really values thinking, and I value thinking a lot as well.
Right.
And so, one of those tensions you might get when we talk about this kind of work is like, well, what do you mean I'm not my thoughts? What about no thought? Isn't that anti-intellectual? Doesn't that decrease my ability to be in the world? Are you saying I should just be a zombie and not think? Is that kind of one reaction that you might get from that?
Well, not me personally, because for someone who has lots of thoughts always running in her head, I like the idea of no thoughts. He says, you are the silence between your thoughts. And I stop and think, I try to visualize that or conceptualize that. It's like I'm the silence between my thoughts, and that's so hard to grasp onto, but it's kind of cool to think about that. I'm not my thoughts, and they don't define me. I'm the thinker of my thoughts. That's what he said. I'm the thinker of my thoughts, and you are the silence between your thoughts. And I thought that is really honing in on it from my view.
Was he to have an I and you? No, same thing.
What do you mean?
You said, "I am not my thoughts. You are the thinker." Wait.
Right. So what does that mean? I'm so confused.
Right. And so the part of you that can understand that is kind of beyond thoughts. But let's go back for a minute, because a lot of people are listening to this podcast that haven't been meditating necessarily for a long time, or a lot of doing practice. And so I just want to start out by saying that our brains our brains are full of synapses, right? Full of history. Everything that we've done in our life is kind of stored in the brain. We learn how to do things how to act and how to do critical thinking and be creative and come up with ideas, interacting with the world and in our brain. We went to school, we've learned all these things we put into our head. And so, of course, the brain as a computer is full of thoughts and full of wonderful ideas and always will be. And so it's not to diminish that at all the great scientific discoveries, all the things that we can do with our brain. So let's take that as a given, that our thoughts and our brains are fantastic machines. Now, in exploring awareness over the last 41 episodes, we've talked about and done experientials where we become aware of our bodies, our thoughts, our emotions. And we always start with the awareness of the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it this way. You're breathing and your lungs are breathing, right?
Right.
And you know that you're breathing. You're aware that you're breathing.
Right.
So we do that. We do our body, and aware, we do the body scan, aware of our bodies in place. And then we become aware that our brains are creating thoughts. Now, the question then becomes, who is the you that is aware? So if you're the part of you that knows that you're thinking, if you're from that place where there isn't really a brain, is that you? And if it is that you, are there thoughts there? Because as soon as you have a thought, you become aware of it, right? So you change that perspective that the thought isn't you, but you're the awareness of the thought.
See, I think that it helps explain it. You're the awareness of your thought. You're the thinker of your thought. Oh, am I getting it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what he said too. Is you're the
yeah. You're the thinker. You're not your. Why do you think we so define ourselves by our thoughts?
Yeah, because the question is, who are you?
Right.
Who are you? And again, that's one of those type of questions that you can say, okay, I am a doctor, and I am a dad, and I am a neighbor, and I am a gardener, and I am a bicycle rider. You can say all the things that you are. There's an exercise sometimes we do at retreats where you sit in front of someone else and you say, who are you? And they answer, and you say, who are you? And they answer. And and it starts to go deeper and deeper. And then there can be this silence. It's like, well, who are you? Beside all those details, who are you? It reminds me of that sense that I'm sure many of us get. It's like, when you were a little kid, is there a part of you that's the same? Your body developed, your brain developed, but there's part of you that feels timeless, that's always been there. Did that part of you age? There's something, beyond, we can say beyond thought, beyond the brain, beyond consciousness, that the brain wouldn't be able to think up because it's not part of the brain activity. It's part of being. So when we practice these meditation techniques and the exploring awareness techniques, there can become a realization. And I've had these realizations where it's like, wait a minute, who am I that knows that I'm thinking? And then you just sit with that and explore that. So we use the word awareness for that. It's still you as well. There's not two of you, there's one of you. But how is it that you're in the world that you would know that you're thinking, aware of your thinking? And so there is a silence there. So one way you can practice is when you're meditating, think of a thought and then become aware of it. And it can dissolve right in front of you. Even when you have a very difficult emotional situation happening, if you look back at it, it comes and goes, doesn't it?
Right.
It comes and goes here and there. But there's another part of you that's just always there that isn't that, right? So you're this roller coaster of emotions or this train of thought. Now, if you think, therefore you are, like Descartes says, you're all in it. You're on the roller coaster. Or you could be watching the roller coaster do all those crazy things from a very comfortable seat.
I like it. It's like, so you are not your thoughts. You can think, oh, I'm having a bad day, but who is the person who's thinking I'm having a bad day? And you don't have to be a bad day. You're just the person who's thinking you're having a bad day.
Exactly.
I know I'm getting it. I'm so excited.
There's also, it brings in this idea of impermanence that we hear about in people that work with this stuff, the impermanence of all things, like that coming and going, right? So when you understand impermanence, then you're just like, well, that's just that happened right now, and the next minute something else is going to happen, and there's not an attachment to the way things have to be,
right?
So when we have an attachment, like, well, I want this to stay exactly the same. I want this person to be the way I want them to be. I want, this job to be what I want. There's a lot of thinking and expectation and rigidity in some of that, right?
Right.
You hold on to that really, really tight, and it causes a lot of problems. You're kind of living out this kind of ideas or script that you think you're supposed to do. And, when you start to open up to this, who you really are, that some of that stuff doesn't really hold up anymore. It's like, wait a minute. What am I doing?
But when you think about who you really are and you take away the thoughts about who you really are, then you're just are.
That's right. You are. And then who you are is still, you still have a personality. For your personality today, your personality might change. Or what happens if you get really old and become demented?
Right.
That you're no longer that person that you were when you were 20 years younger. So I'm not asking you not, to deny anything either, but to come to use these practices to be open to the possibility for your own personal realization of who you are, and then dwell in that, hold that there and see what happens. See if life becomes different. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I would like you to try it. And if this makes sense, try it. If it doesn't make sense, don't try it. But for me, it's been great because it opens up a lot of possibilities.
Does it mean letting go of emotions? Does it mean letting go of pain? Does it mean letting go of expectations or memories? Are you letting go of all of that?
Yeah, there's a way that the attachment to those things breaks. And we didn't have that episode prior on letting go versus falling off.
Right.
It looks like you're letting go when those things are no longer have the importance that they had before. So a lot of us get defined by tragedy or by greatness.
Right.
I know a lot of people who have great accomplishments and that's who they think they are, right? And also people who've had great suffering and that's who they are. And I would say for either one of those, that's not who you are. That's some things that happen to you perhaps, but who you are is still that genuine.
But right now, how we're talking about this and how I'm feeling about it and perceiving it, letting go of all these things and not being the thoughts, I feel like I'm nothing. If you don't define yourself, I don't want to be a victim. So yeah, that's easy for me to let go of. And I don't want to be an egotistical, arrogant person. So I don't want to hold on to that either. But when you start letting go and dropping all these things and not being what are you then? I'll be honest. I have this vision of a corn cob, an empty corn cob. That's how I feel like who I am without all of that. And I don't think that's necessarily the goal, is it?
No, well, no. Who wants to be a corn cob and who wants to be a nothing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's again where thinking about it, you come to that conclusion. I
Right.
completely understand that. And I completely understand that if your thinking mind could never make sense out of this. Like, well, if you don't think, you're going to be nothing.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's why
But
if you don't think you're going to be nothing, that's exactly what
but
I
you
mean.
know what? That's also a thought.
Aha.
That's also a
Ah.
conclusion. That's also part of your brain activity. And so you say, well, there I go trying to explain this away and say why it doesn't make any sense. And then if you hold that, okay, there is your evaluating mind. There's
Uh-huh.
your skeptical mind, right?
Right.
And let that come and go. It's what is being activated in your experience that knows this. And so is it okay for your brain to also rebel against this kind of thing? Yeah, it is. Compassion, understanding that your brain is doing this, be aware, and rest as awareness. And there are no thoughts there. That's why they say,
You're
when
not your thoughts.
you're
You're the
not your
thinker of your
thoughts,
thoughts.
you're not your thoughts. I would say you're the awareness of your thoughts. But even that,
Ah.
once you put it into words, it limits it. So even words, are just sounds and synapses, right? So let's go beyond words, beyond
Hmm.
just rest as the awareness of everything that's coming up. Now that's when we talk about that place, right? That place is silent and is empty, but not again in a way that our minds would think it. Because as we've talked about before, this knowing is that place of authenticity. It's where love and joy and peace and generosity and wisdom, that's where they're coming from in the first place.
Hmm.
So the emptiness, the stillness is vast. And instead of your ways of thinking telling you how to act, now you're moving as authentically connected to your core. And so instead of flipping off the guy that just cut you off, you're like, okay, that happens. It's nothing personal, and it's a response instead of a reaction. So again, tying some of the concepts we've talked about over the last episodes, this practice, this perspective is not turning you into a corn cob. It's turning you into a full potential human.
So I have two thoughts because one, I'm a Pisces and I love to swim. And I remember it makes me feel like I'm underwater and you're just kind of swimming and swimming and swimming and you're just kind of floating and getting to that place where you're just gliding through the water and you're just underwater swimming and gliding, and it's taking me to the place that I'm really been seeking a lot lately, and that is just a place of peace. I just want to be in a place of peace that somewhere inside me, as I said, I'm not a victim and I'm not the product of the things I've been through or that I remember or that I'm hoping for. I'm just there in peace. And I feel like what you're saying is kind of taking me there.
So that was one thought. What was your other thought?
Well, the swimming, I'm swimming. I'm underwater. I mean, you swim, don't you? And
Of course,
go you go deep underwater and you're just moving through the
because
water.
there's an ease with that.
Yes,
There's a
yes,
naturalness with that.
yes.
Right. So again, I think that you called it a thought. So again, I'm going to ask you to be aware of your thought. But it's
Okay.
like, but that's that's a thought that's connecting you to the
Right.
feeling. And so right. So see, it's we get to this place by being aware of our thoughts. And it becomes this experience, right? So this is what we're talking about, and what you're feeling. You can't think it.
Well, can it be a place of peace, or am I thinking too much?
It is a place of peace. And yes, you're thinking too much.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm back to the corn cob, because you know me, I'm always looking for the outcome or the benefit. And
Right. So why
so
don't you
I
bring
hear
that
what you're
type of that expectation to
right.
awareness as well?
What do
So
you mean?
so you're bringing it back. You're to the you're still thinking. That's what
Uh-huh.
I'm saying. You're still thinking and you're still analyzing. And I'm asking you to bring that to awareness as well.
Can I be honest?
Sure.
To get to this, it seems kind of scary. It seems kind of like you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah, right. There's fear arises, right? So you can be aware of fear arising.
well, you think I enjoy not defining myself, but if you're gonna take everything away, if you're gonna take every thought away, and I'm just gonna be aware of it, then you're just there.
We
And
never said we're going to take thoughts away, because
well,
just like
we're gonna be aware of them. We're not gonna identify with them.
that's right. And I'm asking you to try it.
Yeah.
And it might be kind of scary, and it might not make sense. Back to what we started with, it like that doesn't make any sense. But people are saying it, and people are experiencing it, and people are guiding others who might want to try it to do it. And having done it myself, there may have been some fear, but certainly it's not, it's paradoxical. It's like, well, I'm way more effective now with my ideas than I was before.
Well, I know I'm defining it and I'm putting in words to it, but it kind of gives me the same sense I get when I am meditating. When I just get deep into meditation and you're let go of everything, I kind of have that same sense of not identifying with my thoughts, the same freedom. I mean, I know I keep wanting to put a word on it, freedom, peace,
Yeah,
you
well, that's
know,
how we communicate with thoughts. So using
right.
words is fine. Yeah, peace, freedom. There's a very loving aspect to this.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I mean, think what a better gift you could give to yourself, or of love of yourself, to let yourself be free from all those things that are confining you.
Say that one more time.
Yeah, what could be a bigger sign of love than to free yourself from all those things that are confining you? It's a loving act. It comes from a deep place of love of yourself.
I feel like I should have no reaction because
Yeah.
that would be a thought. So, but I mean, we're having
Right, right.
a
But
conversation.
if it, in some cases, right, you're having this conversation and you just look at each other and there's silence, and that's okay. But yeah, it's hard to do on a podcast, right?
Right.
But it's true. It's like,
Mm,
ah, and you're just being.
right.
You're just being. And so meditation, you learn that place,
Yeah.
and then
That's what I just said. You learn.
you become familiar with it. Then you go out in
Right.
the world,
Yes.
right? You're thinking, you're moving, and you're making decisions, and you're doing all
Yes.
these things. But when you're connected to this deeper place, it affects your decisions. It affects your reactions. It affects your how you want to live in the world.
Okay.
You want to
You're
live
gonna.
in the world in a loving, peaceful way, because that feels authentic, or do you want to still be argumentative and or jealous, or all the things that we do to ourselves that make us suffer?
Okay. So I have to stop you because, because I get that we're having no thoughts and being aware of that takes you to a place that's familiar that you sometimes sense when you're meditating.
Yes.
Okay. But then how does that get you to changing how you react to things or changing how you move around in the world? What you just said, just
Um,
because you're, I don't know,
yeah.
just
So right. So let's not set up expectations here. This is not necessarily a cause and effect, but it is, like I've said before, a different lane, right? You move off on a different lane on the highway, and it's going to take you to a different destination.
How?
If you're guided by these type of deeper and authentic things, I think you're going to land in a place with your family and your job and your life in a different place than if you're stuck in your expectations and judgments and all the thoughts and ideas that may be giving you trouble.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So I always like to think of what people listening are thinking, and I'm thinking some people might be thinking, "Dude, you're brainwashing me." I mean, this sounds like mental manipulation. So is
Right.
that an
Yeah.
extreme reaction to have, or
Yeah, that would be, well, because again, that would be a reaction from your brain and from
right?
your thoughts. I'm
Yeah,
certainly not not doing that at all.
right,
Um, and you are welcome to continue with your thoughts. I mean, and the ironic thing is, you will continue with your thoughts. It's just going to
right.
be from a different perspective. So to brainwash someone, I think, would mean to give you new thoughts, different thoughts to think and believe. And this is not even about any belief or any thought. It's about no thought. It's about being aware of your thoughts. It's about adding another layer to yourself. Now, your brain might be very threatened by it, right? And they talk about ego and attachment to ego, and your ego sometimes has a childlike quality. It's like, no, no, resist, not going to do this. But, that ego might be what's getting you into trouble, or might making you unhappy, or keeping you from being in the world fully, right? I mean, not just trouble, not just bad behavior, but what about, you're convinced you're unlovable. You're convinced, you're lonely. I mean, there's all types of things we have in our mind that prevent us from living fully. And you can be totally convinced of these things. You're totally convinced. And your brain doesn't want to get out of that cycle. What I'm saying is not to brainwash you at all. I'm just adding an extra layer that you can try. And I'm not making this up. Being aware of your thoughts. Where does that take you? And how are you going to move around the world differently? I can't predict how that's going to be. I'm not telling you have to do this, but you are listening to this podcast. We're talking about exploring awareness, and that's where we land. And so, if this seems interesting, then you do have to give it a try, and you have to give it a good try. It's not going to be like one meditation and all of a sudden everything's different. It's a path, it's a journey. And if it makes sense to you, then this is a way to do it. These meditation practices and kind of being guided like we're talking about.
And if you're like me and you're a peace seeker and you're just trying to reduce your stress level or feel a little calmer or more centered, then this is one way along that path.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is a no drug,
Nope.
no cost.
Nope.
You don't even have to listen to commercials on this podcast.
Right. And no religious, no preconceived beliefs, no dogma, no just
No.
let all that go. I mean, you're saying the opposite of that, really.
And then, yeah, but for religion, a lot of people enjoy their religions a lot more once they're free to like connect to the something deeper. And some people call that God, some
Mhm.
people call that spirit. So it's like, I think I told you when I went to the Buddhist place in Thailand, it says, may you find the heart of your own religion. So, religions have their cultures and their rules, but there's a heart to it. And I believe, having been involved in a couple of different religions, that the heart of it all is what we're talking about. How do you connect to God, Christ nature, whatever this love is? it's there to connect to, not to think of.
Ooh, I like that. It's there to connect to, not to think up.
Right.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
So
there to connect to, not to think up.
okay, we're gonna put that on a pillow.
Yep, that's our next pillow. That's our next embroidery project. It's there to connect to, not to think of. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to have the Exploring Awareness store and
Yes.
all that. So
I love it.
yeah. So there is. I want to express a gentle, sincerity and appreciation for doubt. Great doubt is it's good,
Sure.
but to be assured that this isn't any type of. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything
Right.
or threaten your ability to think, because
Yeah.
that's not going to happen either. But there is, in the taxonomic structure, we are Homo sapien, subspecies sapien. And a Homo sapien is an ape that's aware. And subspecies sapien is the ape that is aware that it is aware. And so we're adding, whoever made up that structure added that level of awareness that makes a human a human. And to me, that is that deeper ability to have this connection to something larger. And whether you call that God or awareness, it doesn't matter.
Or peace or love or your heart.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So this is an opportunity for humans to experience that. It won't come through thinking. It will come through stillness. And so maybe we should start with a meditation now to kind of work with that.
Sounds good. It won't come through thinking, it comes through stillness.
Yeah. And not like you have to sit still forever.
Right.
It's a stillness like a lake. Do you have a quote about that?
I do. My son's fiance made me a beautiful stitch embroidery cross stitch thing because I'm obsessed with Lake Michigan and I love the Great Lakes because we're in Michigan. And she put this quote on it, says, "Make your heart like a lake with a calm, still surface and great depths of kindness."
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And to make it right, we've got to connect. And that's actually how you move around in the world in a different way, right? And so just by just moving right into a stillness, and people that are listening now, you can tell now we're shifting a little bit, where it's not just a conversation that you're listening to. Now it's an invitation to kind of listen to yourself and to adopt this stance of awareness. So it's shifting, a shift a little bit. And the first shift is the breath. So this whole time you've been listening, you've been breathing, breathing, breathing. And now we stop to be aware of the breathing. And you feel it, air going through your nose or your mouth, doesn't matter, into your chest and back out. Right? So that's being aware of breathing, and it's different than breathing unconsciously. And so what does being aware of the breath kind of do to you? And you're concentrating on the breath. There's a stillness. There's an awareness. Awareness that your lungs, body are doing what it needs to keep you alive. Now shift your awareness to your brain. Right? And your brain is full of thoughts, full of history, full of conclusions about yourself and others. And it's more complicated than breath. There's emotions there. There's history. There's all kinds of things going on. And the thoughts are popping up and down faster than the breath. But just take that same awareness that you had to the breath to the thoughts. And watch the thoughts go up and down, come and go. Think about your day. Think about how you reacted to good things and to bad things. What things you just said didn't mean. Comments that you might just have made about somebody or about something. You're listening to the news and having reactions. And all that's happening like the breath. But what's common about this awareness is it just is still, it's watching the breathing, and the thoughts are happening in what you might call a field of awareness. Today is different than tomorrow, different than yesterday. But what is the same? And so you can watch yourself like an actor in a play. There goes that thought again, because when I hear about this group of people on the radio doing this type of thing or thinking this, I have this reaction. And maybe that reaction is it's a negative reaction. And you don't too much negativity. So bringing all of that to awareness and this practice. So maybe when tomorrow you're hearing that, it's like, oh, there go those reactions again. I'm not going to let that's not affecting my stillness. Because the stillness, I'm established in the stillness. The thoughts come and go, but in the stillness, there's no thoughts. It's just being in this world. All right, and then you read a great how-to book. And you use your thoughts to, build a new cabinet. It's great. instead of kind of being reactionary, all of a sudden perhaps you meet new people and let them be who they are. You be who they are and making friends. Maybe instead of just passing a homeless person, you give them $1. A tender, generous, loving movement from stillness that comes from this awareness. And it's spontaneous, not pre-planned, not contrived. It's just spontaneous. And surely as you practice, your brain takes over and comes up with all kinds of ideas and conclusions. But again, stillness sees what's happening. And then stillness can speak. It might be very different words than if there's not stillness. If things get overwhelming, go back to the breath. Aware of the breath. You can be aware of your entire body. Aware of the thoughts. And rest as awareness where there are no thoughts. And see if that doesn't feel like a very compassionate, peaceful, loving, generous a realization for yourself and for all the people around you. How would that be different? Which makes more sense? Which do you prefer? And what is your brain telling you now? Bring that to awareness. No thoughts. True self. Realization. And then ultimately connection to everyone else that's doing this. And perhaps realization of the heart of your religion. And so we'll close with a couple of breaths. And then open your eyes and take a stretch. And we'll check in with Lisa.
I'm in that place twice, and from our conversation and through meditation. Peaceful place. I'm aware of it. I'm not thinking it. I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
I like to have gratitude, and I'm always grateful for all you bring to this conversation and to helping me realize that that exists within me and within everybody. And again, it's not a ruse, and it's not a belief. It's just a way to be or not be.
Yeah, Lisa, exactly. And, we're all working on this at different
Yes.
levels, and we're all on the path together. And,
Yeah.
wherever you are, it's great. And if this stuff makes sense for you and gives you some relief or gives the listeners relief and happiness, that's really all that matters.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And the world has a lot of stuff going on. And is this great chance for this kind of waking up realization part, and life will go on very well afterwards.
Right.
Very similar. It's very similar, just a little different, but so much more peaceful. And people will say, wow, you're really peaceful. You've got wisdom. I hear that. People will see me and they're like, it's like, why are you always so calm? Like, well, I'm not calm. I'm just being myself. Right. But that's from practice. It's totally from practice. And if I don't practice too much, then I get kind of wonky again. So it's all good.
Use one of my favorite words, wonky. And I'm having this flashback from when we first got together to talk about possibly doing this podcast pre-pandemic. We met at a coffee shop, and you had the same intention that you just articulated right now. And I'm so big on intention, is that helping people know that there is a peaceful place and the joy that has no opposite, and that's inside you always. And that was our intention before we even started recording. And here we are, 42 episodes later, and it's still the same. And there's so many different, what's cool is there's so many different ways to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a big fun journey,
Yes.
Life is and so exploring awareness and looking for opportunities, and that's all what it's all about. So I am so appreciative that you bring all the skills and questions and insights into putting this together as well. And I'm glad we're back after missing a week, and looking forward to the next 40 episodes plus
of our big fun journey. I can't tell you how much I love that.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach out, you can email us at exploringawareness@gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and our website, which is exploringawareness.org.
That's right.
Yay, I got it right.
You got it right. Yes. Yeah, please send us an email, and I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll play around with this what we've talked about today. Say, well, is it because I think that I am, or is it because I don't think I am? That's the question of the week.
All right. Thanks so much for listening.
So long, everybody.
This podcast is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice, nor does use of this information establish a physician-patient relationship. Listening to this podcast does not replace medical consultation with a qualified health or medical professional to meet the health and medical needs of you or others. If you are having problems, please see your primary care provider or your local mental health professional.